So let me get right to my question. Mr. Attorney General, one of the biggest areas in terms of the Justice Department is the funding of federal prisons. And my question to you is and we're concerned about two things. One, the adequacy of the funding. Second, the protection of prison guards, looking back to that terrible death. And number three, what is your plan? Because there are now 18,000 prison guards doing a great job. We're very proud of our guards in the Cumberland facility and the stress that they're under every day. But you've got initiatives here, and now the prison guard population is 1/3 of the Justice Department. So we've got to keep the bad people off the street. But are we just loading up with our federal prisons, and are there other ways where we protect America, but it's almost impossible to keep up with this prison population demand? Could you give us your views on the resources needed and the policies and policy directions you see going in?
Well, I agree with you, Madam Chairwoman. We have to focus on looking at the intake, how many people we're bringing into our federal prison system, and make sure that only those people who should be charged with federal crimes are actually brought into the system. And so that's one of the ways in which we can, I think, do a better job. Safety of the people who work at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the people who are there in our system on a day-to-day basis, are ones who we must keep uppermost in our minds. Our budget requests a total of $6.8 billion to maintain the enhancements provided in the 2014 budget and to support mandatory prison operations. And one of the things that we want to do as well is to prioritize the filling of staff positions so that we have adequate numbers of people in our prisons. That will not only mean that people are treated fairly, humanely in the system, it also keeps people who are our employees safe. We have a good relationship with a new, renewed and good relationship with the union that represents our prison officers. And I think that through the combination of the work that Director Samuels is doing, and with the help of this committee, I think that we can keep our Bureau of Prisons adequately funded and keep the people who work there safe.
Well, I met with prison, well, of course I've been up to the Cumberland prison, but also with prison guards that were teammates, if you will, of Officer Williams, who died in Pennsylvania. They, through the union, really had very specific things that they felt they could do to protect, that they needed to do to protect themselves. And I would encourage you to have ongoing and regular meetings with them, because it's almost like it's not labor management negotiation, it's safety conversation on protecting them so they could protect us. In my time, I'm going to go to another question, and this goes to the heroin crisis. The heroin crisis is sweeping America. I'm now hearing it in my own state of Maryland from county executives, cops on the beat, and so on. Heroin is selling in Baltimore today for $6 a bag, you know, more cheaper than, you know, buying a bag of kale at a gourmet grocery store kind of thing. The governor of Vermont made it the focus of the State of the Union. Senator Leahy has spoken, all of them. Could you share with us, one, your view on this, and what are the resources needed at the Department of Justice level, and how you would work with state and local law enforcement when dealing with this really new epidemic that is both criminal and public health?
Well, I first started to hear about the resurgence of the use of heroin about 3 years or so ago as I was going around the country to various U.S. attorneys' offices, and was struck by the fact that I was hearing about heroin. This was something that I had consigned in my own mind to a problem that existed in the 60s. But there is no question that over the course of these last few years, this has become a national problem. It's not a regional problem. It's not a state problem. This is something that is national in significance. What we need to do is have a balanced approach to dealing with this issue. We need to have a strong enforcement component to it. Our Drug Enforcement Administration takes the lead in that regard. We've recovered record amounts of heroin coming from the Mexican cartels into the United States. But we also, as you say, and this I think is important, we need to focus on the public health component as well. Work with our partners at HHS, at CDC, to come up with ways in which we can educate people about the issues that surround heroin use, and also the connected problem of prescription drug abuse, the use of opioids, and how that leads to the use of heroin. This is all part of a problem that will require, I think, more than simply the Justice Department to really get at it, though I think we have to be in the lead given our enforcement responsibilities that we take very seriously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney General. My time is up. I'm going to turn to Vice Chairman Shelby, but I would really encourage, I think we cannot underestimate that this heroin matter is a new epidemic. And if we were hit by an infectious disease or a new kind of flu, we'd have Fauci from NIH and Francis Collins and Sebelius on the edge of her chair and Arnie Duncan worrying about children in school needing vaccinations. I think we got to go to the edge of our chair here. This is prescription drugs. This is prescription drug addiction that's then leading to people buying heroin because it's easier to get. We've got suburban people driving into Baltimore looking into heroin markets that were featured in some of those awful movies about us. I mean, we are really concerned about what this is, and it's and I think if we marshal the resources of the federal government working with the American Medical Association, doctors in the community, et cetera, we can deal with this. This is not only crime, it is public health. And can I count on you to take the lead in this?
Yes, I will, and I will engage with other members of the cabinet, but beyond that, to go beyond the federal government to try to enlist others who I think have an interest and should have an interest in this, as you've indicated, the American Medical Association, and others, so that we can really get at this problem in a balanced way. This is simply not an enforcement problem. This is something we have to deal with as a public health issue as well.
Right. Mr. Attorney General, we thank you for your testimony today, and as you could see, this is a pretty smart, aggressive committee, but most of all, where we really want to work across the aisle in really protecting our people, starting first of all with the Constitution. So we want to protect the Constitution, we want to protect the people against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that means the scam and scum who prey on people with greed, like mortgage fraud, all the way up to these despicable acts of terrorism. You got a big job, and we wish you had a bigger budget, but we're going to take a good look at it and see how we can support you. Yes.
Maybe I could say just one thing, and that is a thank you to this committee and to the chair, as well as Senator Shelby. We had dark days in 2013, and the flexibility that you allowed us with regard to moving money around meant that people at the Justice Department did not have to be furloughed. It meant that people had the ability, the basic ability, to pay mortgages, to keep their kids in school, to buy groceries, and allowed the Justice Department to do the job under very trying circumstances. We would not have been able to do that without the flexibility that you gave us. So on behalf of the 113,000 men and women of the Justice Department, I want to thank you, this committee generally, but you two specifically for that flexibility.
Well, really, we could not have done it had we not worked on a bipartisan partnership and really with our colleagues in the House, Congressman Rogers and Lilly. But this is where we're trying to say, we're here, we're all in it together. We all take the same oath to the Constitution and to protect us. And so we thank you for that. And you're in the front lines, and we're going to worry about the bottom lines. So we're going to excuse you now and say that if there are questions related to the Attorney General, the record will be open, and we ask them to respond in 30 days. We're going to go to the Inspector General now. Senator Shelby.
Madam Chair, I have several questions for the record for the Attorney General, but I'm sure others need to.
Yes. So the senator is right will be protected, as are others. We're really doing these 60 hearings in 6 weeks, so there are many who wanted to come but couldn't, so they'll be additional questions. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Attorney General. Thank you, Mr. Horowitz. You and your team do such a great job. And tell me, how many employees do you have?
We have on board now about 405, roughly.
And what is your budget?
$86.4 million is our base, and we've asked for that for the next fiscal year, plus $2.2 million in enhancements.
So it'd be 2.2 million more.
Correct.
Is that correct? Well, we ask you to do a very important job overseeing $37 billion. I know Senator Shelby will be raising questions about access to records. I want to welcome your insights on prison reform, but I'm going to go to cybersecurity. It's an area of keen interest with me and have been an advocate. And one of the things I fear is techno boondoggles. You know, we go through the FBI case file thing. Now, we understand the the fiscal 15 budget request from Justice is $722 million. They're actually decreasing it, though the threat is increasing. You note that you cite 130 open recommendations for improving the security of the department's own IT system. Could you comment on what you think are, where you think appropriate in an open and public session, so we don't tip any bad guys here? What do you think they need to do to improve their cybersecurity? And do you think it's money? Do you think it's management? Or do you think it's a government-wide problem? I have my own views. I'd like to hear yours, sir.
Our 130 recommendations come from our FISMA audits, which are obviously marked sensitive given the nature of the information. But generally, they have involved the handling of configurations of systems and account management of those systems as well. We've made a number of very specific requests and have outlined the issues that I think need to be addressed. I think generally it is a function of both the needs, additional needs potentially for the systems, as well as the possibility of the requirement for additional personnel. We ourselves, for example, are struggling with both of those issues as well in a tightening budget environment, making sure we've got the right IT people as well as enough funding for the right systems. And so that's one of the things I've tried to do with our budget this year, is catch up essentially from where we fell behind over the last 2 years.
Do you feel that the Justice Department is prime time in implementing your recommendations?
I think that in a number of areas, the department needs to do a better job in implementing the recommendations we make faster, and going and looking at them seriously and taking them seriously. We continue to push on that. The Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General have supported that effort, and we will continue to press on that.
So you feel you have the support. So again, I'll come back. Is it a resource issue? Is it a consistent resource issue? Senator Shelby, Graham, others have raised, sequester, right, close, slam down and go shut down, furloughs. What's the issue here? We can't hire tech people?
I think it's probably a combination of both issues that you identified, that the needs continually change, they're continually evolving, technology is continually evolving, the threats are continually evolving, and that's one of the reasons, frankly, we've undertaken the next cyber initiative review, because Congress has given a substantial amount of money to the department to undertake that effort, and that is a very significant part of the department's budget and a critical part of dealing with threats going forward.
Well, thank you. We could ask more, but I'm going to turn to Senator Shelby here. We believe the Inspector General's, this is a bipartisan approach that should have access to the information compliant with existing law. There are certain rules and so on. I'm not a lawyer, but, there's legal compliance and there's access. So that's one thing. Second thing, I am familiar with this, or becoming familiar with this Peace Corps situation. A young lady who was a Peace Corps volunteer saw another Peace Corps volunteer allegedly sexually assault, reported it, and then the Peace Corps server who reported it was murdered. Well, this is big. So, but we want to maintain the integrity of the Inspector General process. We believe in the Inspector General process. Government should be never so big or so insulated or so isolated that it does not have an independent, Senate-confirmed institution to red team their work for waste, fraud, or other forms of mismanagement. So we look forward to working with you on this. And Mr. Inspector General, you come with an extensive background in sentencing, incarceration, and so on. You actually were head of the Sentencing Commission.
As a member
So
of the
you,
Sentencing
yes, sir. So you come with actually hands-on experience, and you've seen the good and bad and ugly. So we really welcome your insights on how we can reduce the prison population without increasing the risk to our communities, and also the thoughts on how we can look out for the safety of our prison guard population, where they themselves don't feel that they're captive by the prisoners. You bring up a compassionate situation, the over 65. We welcome your insights. I think evidence shows that if you committed murder, you're not likely to commit murder after 65. But if you're a sexual predator, you could be out in that playground once again. Right. So we welcome your insights on how we can work constructively, evidence-based, conceptual thinking, and your own experience, because you bring the experience of longitude from really enforcement to sentencing and now the Inspector General. We really appreciate your service. So I'm going to ask the staff on both sides of the aisle, because this has been raised by other members, so this is not a party thing. Right. This is a committee thing, to meet with our staff on how we can implement, working with the Attorney General, prison reform. We also want to work with you, Senator Shelby and I, for you to get the access to the information that you need.
Thank you.
So we're going to possibly be having votes soon, so we could talk with you all day, but we're going to thank you for your service. Look forward to these reports. Ask staff to work hands-on with you, and look forward to bringing about some much-needed reform. If there's no further questions, Senator may submit additional questions. This committee stands in recess to the call of the chair. The next hearing will be on Thursday at 10 o'clock, in which we will take testimony from Secretary Pritzker, the Secretary of Commerce. Oh, I remember.
Thank you.